live in Massachusetts, about an hour's drive outside of Boston. Because of certain health concerns, I frequently take the train into Boston and the subway to my doctor's office, rather than visiting a local doctor's office in my hometown. You run into quite a few strange occurrences on the Underground, but this one is outright the scariest I have ever experienced. I had taken the T all the way into the city and waited for the subway train to come. For some reason, the C-rail on the Green Line was taking a really long time to come, and I wound up being late for my doctor's appointment, and I had to reschedule. I was angry, so I just got lunch and went back down to the subway. Once I was back in the Underground, I still was not able to even think straight. I mistakenly got on the train to Government Center and had to get off and switch trains. I suppose this encounter was inevitable, but maybe if I hadn't made the mistake of getting on the wrong train, this whole experience would have never happened. I don't even know. So when I got on the right train to North Station, I immediately sat down and started playing with my phone like I usually do, avoiding eye contact and any potential trouble, as best I could. When you're a young lady taking any sort of subway train, you're gonna get looks. You're gonna get checked out. You might even get pressed up against or hovered over. As uncomfortable as it can be, it's really unavoidable with some of these guys, and you begrudgingly have to just get used to it. However, what I didn't expect to see was a far older gentleman point-blank staring at me the entire way from Government Center to North Station, a whole 2 stations apart. Even most of the creeps have more tact than that, and it was especially weird because when I say gentleman, this guy was decked out. His hair looked immaculately straightened. It was long and pulled back in a sleek, silvery ponytail. He wore what looked like gold-rimmed glasses, was wearing a sweater vest over a blue cotton shirt, auburn dress shoes, a khaki knee-length trench coat, and carried a cane-handled umbrella. Not the typical sort of guy that would creep on you. I mean, he looked like a college professor, but he sure didn't act like one. I tried to just brush it off, although I couldn't help but shoot him a couple glances just to see if he was still looking at me. Each time I looked up, I saw he still was, and he would raise his eyebrows expectantly or wink at me or smile wider. He was really freaking me out. When we got to North Station, I couldn't get off the train fast enough. I rudely pushed past as many people as I could and sprinted up the stairs, just trying to put distance and a greater obstacle of crowd between us. As I exited the subway, I saw to my relief that a crowd of people was already being permitted to cross over to North Station by a traffic cop. I lost myself in the crowd and bustled quickly over to the station. But when I reached the front door and turned around to hold the door out to whoever was behind me, I almost choked. He was directly behind me. And it struck me that he had to have pushed through the crowd just to keep on my tail. I felt an adrenaline rush coursing through my body and the world spun around me. I was just terrified that this was even happening. I ran ahead and pushed through the second line of doors and into the station at large. I wound my way through the crowd and went to look at the schedules to see when my train would be coming. I felt every muscle in my body tense as the guy came up to me to start a conversation. I didn't even get a hello or how are you. He just dove straight in asking,
"So where are you headed?"
"Home," I answered curtly.
"Where's that?"
He pushed. I shouldn't have said this. I should not have said this. But I told him my hometown.
"Ah."
He nodded knowingly.
"That's the Newburyport line."
"Yep," I said, trying to convey that I knew what I was doing and I didn't need his help. I was starting to notice people around us taking notice of our conversation. I probably looked visibly uncomfortable, and I even saw a few guys nearby tense up, in case they were going to have to step in for me.
"The ticket counter is just over there,"
he said, motioning to the other side of the partition that separated the main part of the station from the back walkway. "I already have my ticket," I informed him, trying to sound polite and yet hinting yet again that I didn't need his help.
"Yes, the ticket counter is right over there,"
he said again. I scrunched up my brow in confusion. He wasn't even standing a foot away from me. I really doubt that he hadn't heard me, but I repeated myself anyway. "I already have my ticket."
"Yes, well, the tickets at the counter are only $3,
he informed me. "That's good to know," I said, knowing this was a bold-faced lie, "but I got a round trip on my way here."
"Yes, but the tickets at the counter are only $3.
Getting fed up, I finally just snapped. "All right, I'm going to go get Dunkin' Donuts. It was nice talking to you." And I promptly walked away. I think the guy finally became aware that the people surrounding us had been staring at us the whole time, catching the whole conversation. He looked embarrassed as he walked off to God only knows where. I breathed a sigh of relief knowing I was finally rid of him. After getting my coffee, I went to sit on a bench near the platform entrances and did my best to look like I was minding my own business. But then, here comes the weird guy again. He walks past straight in front of me, staring at me the entire time he passes by, until I look up at him. Then he pretends to be looking at the schedules and disappears into the crowd. He repeats this 3 times until he notices that he's getting weird looks not from just me, but from people all around us. Then he settles on going and standing somewhere off in the distance, but still within line of sight of me. I cringe inwardly and shake my foot nervously, waiting for my train to be called. When my train finally does arrive in the station, I book it for the furthest car at the front of the train. After entering and finding a seat, I anxiously keep my eyes on the entrance, worrying about whether he's following me again, waiting to freak out and alert a conductor as soon as I see his face appear in the doorway. But it doesn't happen. I breathe a sigh of relief and settle into my seat and enjoy my ride home, trying to slow my escalating heartbeat and convince myself that I will never have to see the man again. But lo and behold, when the train finally pulls into the station at my hometown and I step off onto the platform, I look to my left down the line of carriages, and he's stepped off too. As soon as he sees me glaring at him, a creepy smile stretches across his face and he starts walking directly towards me as if we're old friends. You can't make this stuff up. I still needed to pay for my parking ticket, and at my station there's 2 terminals for paying. One is right on the platform on the 1st floor, and the other is on the 2nd floor. I sprint away from the man, almost slamming into a couple people, and bolt for the elevators. I press the button and thank God. One of them is right there to receive me. I hurry in and turn around, seeing the man still pushing through the crowd in the distance, his eyes locked on me. I punch the button for the 5th floor over and over and then hit the closed door button, not wanting him to see the floor I was really going to stop on. Lucky for me, there didn't seem to be anyone else who wanted to get on the elevators for some reason. My car was on the 1st floor, but I had to shake this man first. I didn't know exactly where he was, but as the elevator was reaching the 2nd floor, I hit the button for the 3rd floor. The elevator stopped there. I hopped out of the elevator and turned around to see the 2nd elevator shooting up toward the 5th floor with the guy inside. We locked eyes as he went up, and it looked like he was ready to murder someone when he saw me. I couldn't even move for a second or two. I was so terrified. I couldn't get down the stairs fast enough. I paid for my parking ticket on the 2nd floor and then ran down to the 1st to my car. I made it to my car and drove to the exit gate, ran my ticket through the scanner, and drove away as fast as I could. To this day, telling that story to friends or family gets me very worked up and can trigger an anxiety attack. I never saw that guy ever again, and nor do I want to. I don't know what that guy wanted, what he was going to do if he caught me, or what he was going to do if I had left the main part of the station that day and walked with him to the ticket counter. I really feel for any other woman he's literally stalked to the point of following them to their hometown, or worse. Here's some background information before I launch into the story. At the time of this encounter, I was 16 and participating in an exchange program. My high school in America was partnered with a high school in Germany, and every year, about 10 or so kids from the German program at my high school get to go and live in Germany with a host family for a summer. My exchange partner Vanessa and I got along great. As it turned out, my best friend Rebecca was on the exchange with me, and her exchange partner, Anne Catherine, was best friends with Vanessa. Needless to say, the 4 of us were practically inseparable. One day we decided to head into Nuremberg to do some shopping. Vanessa and Anne Catherine lived on the same street, so the 4 of us walked to the little subway train station thing by their house. They lived about 10 minutes outside the city, so the subway train ride wasn't long at all. As we were taking the escalator down to catch the subway, we hear someone whistling at us. Thinking it would be some dumb boy messing around, we look around to see who it was. We hear the whistling sound again, and lock eyes with the man riding up the escalator. We were on the down one, so we locked eyes right as we passed each other. The man was probably in his late 50s or early 60s, and he was huge. I would guess around 6'7" in height, and easily close to 300 pounds. Stupidly, the 4 of us waved at him. We were just messing around and didn't think the guy would think much of it. Much to our chagrin, he took it as an invitation to begin terrorizing us. Suddenly, he starts sprinting up the escalator, and once he gets to the top, gets on the down escalator and starts shoving people out of the way to get to us. For a big guy, this dude was moving fast. It was apparent that he wanted to get to us, though the people surrounding us probably thought he left something on the train and wanted to get it before it was too late. At this point, we were basically at the bottom, so we take off running, and by the grace of God, the train we needed had already pulled up. We run onto the train and sit down, relieved that we got away from this scary guy. Or so we thought. The train we were on was separated into sections, so there were see-through doors you had to go through if you wanted to get to a different section, if that makes sense. About a minute into our subway ride, we see the guy moving through the section in front of ours. We immediately stand up and sprint to the next section, hoping that we'll find a more crowded one that we can hide in. This continues on for a few more minutes, until we realize that we've reached the front of the train. We sit down in the 4 seats closest to the front, and sure enough, the man comes barging into our section. He sits in a single seat across from us and positions himself so he has a clear view of us. Then he starts laughing really deep and slow. We were trying so hard not to look at him, but out of the corner of my eye, I could see that his eyes were unblinking and bulging out of his head. He was grinning in such a malicious way, and he had started to drool. He even licked his lips a few times. We start whispering in English to each other, hoping that this guy's English isn't that strong, and we decided that at our stop, we're going to sprint off the train and find a policeman or someone who can help us. The train gets to our stop and we bolt off of the train. Luckily, our stop is pretty crowded, so we're hoping to duck out of sight and then find someone who will help us. We turn around to make sure he isn't behind us, and the guy hasn't gotten off the train, but he's shifted so he has a clear view of us from the window by his seat. We watch for a little while and the train begins to pull away, but not before the man widens his smile and begins slowly waving at us. I swear he didn't even break eye contact or stop waving until the train was entirely out of sight. I don't really know what that guy wanted with us, or why he was so hell-bent on chasing us through the train. Maybe he was planning on getting off at our stop with us, but when he saw how crowded it was, decided to just stay on the train because he knew he wouldn't get away with whatever he was plotting. All I know is that I was absolutely scared. To start this off, I'm a 25-year-old female who's a big fan of baseball. This happened only a few months ago this year. I usually went to opening night for our home team with my boyfriend, but this year he decided he wanted a guys' night out and insisted that I do not tag along. Thinking I was going to miss it this year, to my surprise, my best friend bought tickets for us and agreed to go as a girl date, just her and I. A little background on why this was such a big deal. Our city has 2 teams and she happens to be a fan of our other home team, and would never be caught dead coming to our field for opening night. So this meant a lot to me and I was ready to get this night started, as we tend to get into trouble when we venture out together. I'll cut to the chase. We basically got drunk before getting to the stadium, finishing a bottle of Jack and ordering more beers once inside the park. Our team won. Everyone was happy and celebrating, and it was time to leave the park. We headed out and got caught in the crowd because the field is located in the middle of a heavy bar area. So when it gets this crowded, police begin to barricade the streets so they can do crowd control. We started to feel closed in and managed to slip away from the crowd and ended up in the back of an alley a few blocks away from the bar scene in the field. In the alley, we decided to pull out a joint we had saved for our after-party celebration. We lit it up and stood behind some condo building in an alley next to a garage. Nobody else was around and we were just shooting the breeze when suddenly 2 guys came walking up the other end of the alley. They smelled our weed and right away made a smart comment, something along the lines of,
Damn, you girls got some loud.
We laughed and brushed it off, but they decided to come our way. I was not in the best state of mind, and when under the influence of things, I tend to become too friendly. So I called them over like an idiot, and once I did that, my friend shot me a look as she was more street smart than myself. So these guys come over and start up a general conversation. They seemed okay at first. They looked to be around the same age as us. They asked us if we wanted to smoke some of their stuff. We politely declined, but they insisted. As the one kept the conversation with us, the other was rolling up the joint. My friend, being smart, thank God, was heavily watching him roll it, and I noticed she made some uneasy-looking facial expressions. Once he finished, he was about to light it up, when my friend totally flipped and told the guys that we cannot stay. We must go right now, and she grabbed my arm and we took off. We began walking back to the field and the bars because we needed to catch public transit to go back home, and the stop was right next to the field. I asked her if she's okay and what happened because I was paranoid now. and she said that she saw the guy sprinkling a bunch of weird stuff on the weed and adding other substances before rolling it up. I thought to myself, thank God she caught that, because who knows what they laced that stuff with and what they were planning on doing once we were nice and drugged up. We only smoke weed, so I can't even imagine how my reaction would have been to whatever he was putting in there. I wish I could say that the night was over and we got home safely, but unfortunately, our night had one more creepy encounter in store for us. So we jump on the transit to start heading home, and the train was sardine packed. It began to get uncomfortable, and being drunk and high, we felt closed in. Also, the train we were taking is infamous for terrible things happening, but it's the only train that leads directly to the baseball field. Some examples are lots of robberies, occasional assaults, sexual assaults, people getting pushed on the tracks, super creepy homeless people, stuff like that. Sounds nice, right? Also the last place you should be when intoxicated or under the influence of drugs. So we couldn't take any more of it and got off after about 4 stops. We decided we'd exit the subway and call an Uber instead. The subway was dark, wet, and deathly quiet. You can hear the rats rummaging around in the tunnels and the tracks, it was so quiet. Not a soul was down there but us 2 girls, and it was about 10-something at night. So we make our way around a tunnel that leads to a stairway to get upstairs and outside to the city. As we turned the corner to head for the stairs, we passed a dark corner that was hard to see in. I kid you not, this is exactly how it happened. We couldn't see until we got closer to this dark patch of a corner, but there was a man sitting crouched in the fetal position, with his head in his knees in the dark corner. He looked dirty and smelled terrible, typical homeless dude. But once he noticed us, his head popped up and turned in our direction. You may laugh, but this is exactly what came to mind when this happened. If you're a zombie movie fan like myself, I'm sure you know the certain zombies that kinda just lay there lifeless until a human strolls along, and suddenly they perk up and animate and come charging at them. This is exactly how this went. This man popped his head up, looked at us, shot up from the floor, and started screaming at the top of his lungs. My friend and I immediately booked it for the staircase and started charging up them, and to our horror, he was chasing us. My friend is more athletic than I am, and she sprinted ahead of me on the stairs. I don't know why, maybe it was the beer, but I had the strongest urge to look behind me, because I seriously could feel him gaining on me as we raced up the stairs. He kept screaming at us that we were so beautiful and to come back right now. I was seriously in a panic, and I kept looking back to see him chasing after us with this crazed look in his eyes. My friend reached the top of the stairs before me and kept screaming at me to run and to stop looking back. I don't know why again I kept looking back in panic and began to scream back at him in anger and fear. I managed to make it up the stairs though, and once I did, my friend grabbed my arm and we took off across the street. We ran a few blocks down before stopping behind a bus stop to catch our breath. We walked back toward the subway entrance carefully just to see if the deranged bum was still lurking around. And when we peeked around, he was. He was standing at the top of the stairs and locked eyes with us. Probably stupid that we went back to check, but we just had to know. He stared at us for a few seconds, smiled, and then turned around and headed back down into the tunnels. A young guy waiting at the bus stop we hid near saw what happened and approached us to ask us if we were okay. We explained to him what happened and he agreed to hang with us until our Uber driver arrived. Man, I have never been so happy to see an Uber pull up. Once inside, we were finally able to relax and we headed back to our house. She lives very south of the baseball field, so we had a nice ride home to recap the night that happened to us. So after these series of events, I don't think my friend will agree to come to another Northside game with me ever again. So some words of advice for all who travel public transit or get crazy drunk on nights out. 1. I do not recommend riding any public transit drunk. 2. Always be aware of your surroundings. I honestly cannot be any more thankful for my best friend being alert and ready to respond. She's a nurse, so I guess it comes natural for her now. Our night could have ended up quite different on 2 different occasions if it wasn't for her.